and I am not kidding. And you will notice that every one of these nations that is named here, who are they worshiping? A God they call Allah. But what did Jesus say to the Samaritan woman at the well? Salvation is of the Jews. I didn't say it, he did. And here we have that thou art the most high over all the earth. Now that psalm is just kind of like the book of Ezekiel. I said Ezekiel is kind of Star Wars and Star Trek on steroids. This psalm and Ezekiel are as up to date and as current as today's newspaper. Very fresh and very meaningful, and it's unfolding all around us. And all you have to do is know the book and kind of know what to look for. And none of it comes as any real surprises. Is it any surprise that none of this has really changed after all these years? It's the same bunch. And they're saying the same thing now that they were 2,500 and 3,000 years ago. Their object is the same. They are after the same things. Now, when we're looking at Ezekiel, what we are looking at, of course, is the Babylonians, Iran. We are looking at, of course, what else? We are looking at, and these other nations were confederates with them in many of the things that they did. Now let's just ease on back over into the book of Zechariah. And I want to ask you to look at, first off, let's see, I've got here, yes. I want you to look at chapter 8 of Zechariah. And I see the thumbs and fingers moving and the pages turning, and Chris looking in his little window there. Hey, that's a good view, isn't it, Chris? I want you to look at this 8th chapter of Zechariah. Here's what we have here. We are talking, and Zechariah, incidentally, and Revelation, and Ezekiel, all kind of, and Daniel, all kind of fit together. They're all kind of a part of one thing. We are looking here in Zechariah, once again, at one of these eschatological books that deals with the end times. Now notice what Zechariah, or the Lord speaks through Zechariah here. Many people in this is at the very end, I need to have brought my little magnifying glass. That's verse 22. My eyes, they're going west with the rest of me rapidly. Many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem and to pray before the Lord. The word there in both cases is Yahweh. Thus saith Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, the Lord of armies. In those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all the languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Now here's an interesting verse, friends. Take note. 10 men out of all languages of the nations. Well, come on now. There are more nations out there than 10. I personally don't believe this is talking about the United States of America or Costa Rica or, Zimbabwe or all these. I mean, there are 130, 35, something like that nations. But this specifically says 10. If you go back to Psalm 83 and count the nations that are mentioned in that psalm, and do not count Lot. It says the children of Lot at the end, but the children of Lot are Moab and Ammon. The Ammonites and the Moabites. If you will count those, I think you will come up with 10. If I'm wrong, well, you can later on say, well, you're wrong. Okay, I'll live with it. But I personally believe, look around you over there, and every one of these nations, and Ezekiel mentions them again in Ezekiel, in the Gog and Magog invasion, doesn't he? A bunch of these nations, the same ones that were in Psalm 83, the same ones that are over there right now, attempting and saying they're going to wipe out Israel. Now the fact of the business is, I believe this is the nations that we're talking about, that Zechariah is talking about, because it specifically says 10. The nations, think about it, that are surrounding Israel right now and saying that they're going to wipe them out. Very interesting. They're not going to wipe them out. I remember Menachem Begin, when he was the Prime Minister of Israel, said of Mr. Carter, didn't say it to him, I wish he had. Someone needs to punch a hole in that pretentious windbag. But I've been cruel, excuse me, forgive me for that. Man's confused, we'll pray for him. Look, what he said was this. Mr. Carter claims to be a Bible-believing man. Let him acknowledge that God gave this land to Israel. That's right. Okay, let him do it. Let them all do it, but they won't do it. Alan Dershowitz, a man for whom I really have considerable respect, he's very intelligent and basically, he's well educated and basically a fair man in his own way. He has written a book, the name of which I read it and I can't even remember the title of it. Doesn't matter, you can read it if you want to, but I don't necessarily recommend it. Huh?
You can't tell us what it's called though, so we...
Well, all you have to do is look up Dershowitz and it'll be listed in there somewhere. Smart alecky kid. All right. Dershowitz wrote this book, and it's about the problems in the Middle East. It is about, listen to me carefully, friends, I passed this way but once, the two-state solution. This is the chimera. This is the whatever, the thing glimmering on the horizon out there that all of the, the left in particular, all love and are looking for. And here's the answer to the whole problem. And Dershowitz is a very well-educated and intelligent man and writes well. And he is for the two-state solution. Very simple. This is what when they divvied up the land in 1948 and petitioned the land, this was what it was petitioned into. This is Israel, here's Palestine. Of course, the Palestinians wouldn't accept it, would they? And the war resulted, and they've been in war ever since. Now, Dershowitz's answer to the problem, his solution is the two-state solution, which he says, a lot of people of goodwill, they all want it, they're in agreement with this, and they are. He's absolutely correct. But there's a problem with it. There's always one of those, isn't there, Greg? The problem with it is this. In order to have a two-state solution, you have to have two parties that want to come to a solution. And there is the rub, as Shakespeare said on an occasion. They don't have. They have a lot of good Palestinians over there who are good, basically kind, and people who are willing to, they know that and they would go along with it. The problem is they are not the ones running things. They are not the ones in the driver's seat. And all Mahmoud Abbas has to do to get assassinated is to come out in favor of the two-state solution, and our president is heading over there very shortly. I think maybe this weekend, isn't he, Gary? To meet with Israel and the Palestinians about what else? The two-state solution. Friends, there's not going to be a two-state solution. The solution, there's only one solution. Well, two, really. From the human point of view, the only solution is Israel has got to go. That's it. Or the Palestinians. And the Palestinians aren't going anywhere. And I will assure you, listen to me once again, my friends, I've said it before, I passed this way but once. Here comes the prophet from East Texas. Yes, John D. Miller. I'm telling you. I am telling you. This thing, all of the nations, and I hope I hope America doesn't. But the nations are going more and more to turn against Israel out of pure, unmitigated desperation. You hear me? Because this is the only thing they can figure out. We have got to get rid of these guys. And there will not be peace with them there. Now, once again, I hope, and we better pray, if you love this nation, you had better pray that we do not turn against Israel.
Amen.
Because any nation that if they turn against Israel, their gooses are cooked. Now let's look, we're still in Zechariah here. Look at the 12th chapter of Zechariah. The burden, verse 12, or chapter 12, verse 1. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundations of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Wow. Behold, look at this. I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about. When they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. Look at this language. A burdensome stone. This is the Lord talking. Think about this. All the peoples, they cannot carry it. They don't know what to do with it. That's exactly where we are right now, incidentally. And they are over there meeting right now, not stupid people, but well-educated people, trying to figure out a solution to this thing. And the solution to the hatred between, really coming from the Palestinians toward the Jews, and the Jews, you know, they have their haters too. And there seems to be no solution whatever, and there isn't. The only other solution is, and this is the one that's going to happen, and you can put this in the bank, the Lord is going to have to actively intervene, which is exactly what he is going to do. And he is going to do it to save the people of Israel. And when he does it, they will know indeed. There's a phrase that occurs over and over again in the book of Ezekiel. And it is this, and you will know that I am the Lord. He says it over and over again as he pronounces judgment on Israel. You will know that I am the Lord. And they will know it because his word will come to pass even as he said it. He is the Lord, and he is the one who will have to intervene to save them. Let's read some more of this. Well, before we do, a little story here. Maybe I've told this before, but I can't remember what I've said, where, and when I said it, or who I said it to. So I'll try to be entertaining enough in the way I say it that even if you've heard it before, you'll say, well, it was still interesting. There's a movie that came out, several years back. As I told you, I like movies. I'm not one of those guys that wouldn't let my kids go to movies. I hope they went to good movies. But there was a movie that came out made for television. It was made from a book called Holocaust. It was about the Jews in Germany and what happened to them under the Nazis. And this particular, one of the main characters was a Jewish man who was a physician, and he lived with his family in Munich, I believe, maybe in Stuttgart, one of the southern German cities. And he was out walking through the streets one day, and he came upon this Nazi rally. And the flags were out, and the swastikas were out. And, you know, the bands were playing, and who knows, I don't know who was on the platform, maybe Hitler. And he stood there and he listened for a while. And he went home, and he told his wife, pack your things, get the kids together, we've got to get out of here. And she said, out of where? And he said, out of Germany, out of the country of Germany. And she said, well, why? And he said, because of what's going to happen to us if we stay here. And he had just come from this rally and heard what they were saying. And she said, nothing is going to happen to us here. This is Germany. This is the country of Bach Beethoven, Goethe, Immanuel Kant, and she just goes down the list. And he listens to her a while and he says, yes, well, unfortunately, none of them is in office. Okay? Right. And incidentally, if you, just to make things interesting for you, for those of you who you may have been raised thinking that there's some fatal flaw in the German character and the Germans did all this because, they were raised in blind obedience and all that. Listen, the Germans, as far as the Western world is concerned, are the best we have. They're the tops in any field you want to name, and yet they did all of this. That doesn't say anything about the Germans. That says something about the human race. And if you think it can't happen here, well, ask some of my friends out here who are of American Indian extraction. What happened to them? But I digress. But back at this. He says, in that day saith the Lord, in that day will I make Jerusalem, all the burden themselves shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. Now let me tell you, and once again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it needs to be heard and it needs to be said, and we need to think about it, because as this gets closer, and it is getting closer and closer, you have to be willfully blind not to see it. As this gets closer, something else gets closer. And that is the rapturing of the church.